It's 7:30 p.m. across India, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in Rome, Giles Gibson. Thank you for being with us, Giles.
Thanks, Tanvi. It's just after 4 p.m. here in Rome, and coming up, we're going to be discussing Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Spain trying to shore up weapons supplies for his country's war effort against Russia. And we're also going to look at the latest tensions in the Taiwan Strait. But first, back to the studio in New Delhi for the headlines.
EU foreign ministers meet their Arab counterparts in Brussels to discuss the Middle East security situation. EU Chief Josep Borrell says attacks in Gaza must stop immediately. Ukrainian President Zelensky signs a bilateral defense deal with Spain that will provide military arms worth $1.08 billion this year to Kiev. A senior US lawmaker visiting Taiwan says China's intimidating drills show that they are not interested in peace. China tells the United States to stay out of Taiwan's affairs. And India's democracy is very mature, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi, highlights his government's fight against corruption in an interview to news agency IANS. News from Europe first. The EU foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels to discuss the tense situation in the Middle East and the conflict in Gaza in particular. The EU foreign ministers are currently holding talks with their counterparts from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the UAE and Qatar. The foreign ministers are also expected to discuss the EU's support to Ukraine in its conflict against Russia, including the use of frozen Russian assets to buy military aid for Ukraine. In the latest from the Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel has said that its military carried out strikes on a Hamas compound in Rafah and took out two of the group's commanders. Israel said that the strike was carried out against legitimate targets under international law. Israel said that it was aware of reports indicating that the strike caused a fire and civilians in the area were harmed, adding that the incident is under review. Qatar termed this attack as a hindrance on reaching a ceasefire and hostage exchange deal.
The details of yesterday's incident are still under an investigation, which we are committed to conducting to the fullest extent. The IDF regrets any harm to non-combatants during the war.
And for more on Israel's strike on Rafah, DD India's Sarah Coates sent us this report from Tel Aviv.
90 aircraft struck a Hamas compound in which significant terrorists were operating, saying that the strike was carried out against legitimate targets under international law through the use of precise munitions and on the basis of precise intelligence. Now, according to the military, it eliminated a Hamas chief of staff of the West Bank, also another official from that same area. As you did mention, the military is acknowledging that a number of civilians were harmed, saying it is investigating. But as we go to air, we've been hearing from doctors on the ground who say that they expect the death toll from this strike to rise, given that they say it was on an area that was previously declared a safe zone by the Israeli military. Well, Israel has maintained it is operating in accordance with international law. Shortly after that ruling a couple of days ago, we heard furious reactions from Israeli officials. They called it anti-Semitic. They were saying that they will continue fighting until all of these Israeli hostages are released. We do need to remember that this also did include Hamas, and we did hear from the EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, just a little earlier, saying that Hamas must also respect this ruling. And we do need to remember it was only 24 hours ago that Hamas fired a barrage of rockets over central Israel, including here in Tel Aviv. It was the first time in 4 months that air raid sirens were activated in this area. We can tell you that the Iron Dome missile defence system, it did intercept a number of these incoming projectiles, but not all of them, with one of them actually hitting a home just a little north of where I am, wounding one person.
So also on EU's agenda is the Ukraine crisis. The past week has seen an uptick in strikes on Kharkiv after Russian troops stormed across the border, opening a new front north of the city. Now, my colleague Giles Gibson is in Rome. He takes it forward from me here, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Giles, Ukraine's defense supply troubles continue.
That's right, Tanvi. And as those supply issues continue and the fighting continues, at least 2 people have been killed and 5 people injured in a Russian attack on Ukraine's southern Mykolaiv region on Monday. Meanwhile, Russia claims to have gained control of 2 more settlements in the Kharkiv and Donetsk regions. The Russian Defense Ministry saying that its forces also successfully targeted Ukrainian armoured vehicles and artillery systems. The Ukrainian army, meanwhile, say that their drones have targeted a Russian radar system near the city of Orsk. It said that no civilian infrastructure was hit in that attack, though. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Spain, where he's signed an agreement giving his armed forces military equipment worth just over $1 billion, and that's just for this year alone. The pact includes modern military equipment for ground, aerial, naval and other types of uses. And Volodymyr Zelensky has been holding a joint news conference with his host, the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, where the 2 sides agreed to work on defense supply troubles being faced by Ukraine in its conflict against Russia. DD India's Megumi Lim sent this report from Kyiv.
In a daily defense ministry briefing on Monday, Moscow claimed its forces had taken the village of Netailova in the eastern Donetsk region and the village of Ivanivka in the northeast Kharkiv region. Russia launched a major ground assault into Ukraine's Kharkiv region 2 weeks ago, and the advances that have been made since are some of the most significant over the past 18 months, according to calculations done by AFP. President Zelensky visited Spain on Monday after postponing his trip 2 weeks ago due to this Kharkiv region assault. He signed a bilateral security agreement with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez on Monday, the latest in a string of agreements Kyiv has so far signed with countries like the UK, Germany, France, Denmark, Italy and Canada. Prime Minister Sanchez said Spain will provide Ukraine with the support of 1 billion euros in 2024 and 5 billion euros by 2027. These treaties are based on a pledge made by the G7 countries last July to help Kyiv defend itself and to deter future aggression. Now, Zelensky's visit to Spain came after he traveled to the city of Kharkiv to visit a printing house that was destroyed by a Russian strike last week. He recorded a video appealing to U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping to attend the upcoming peace summit that will be held in Switzerland next month. Kharkiv has been coming under more attacks in recent weeks, prompting Ukrainian officials to urge Washington to also lift its ban on Ukraine using U.S.-supplied weapons to strike military targets inside Russian territory. On Saturday, a hypermarket in Kharkiv was hit by 2 Russian-guided bombs, killing at least 16 people. Several people remain missing and the search operation continues. Megumi Lim in Kyiv reporting for DD India.
Let's get some other news from around Europe now, and the French President Emmanuel Macron is in Germany for a 3-day visit, followed by a bilateral meeting as the European Union's two biggest powers seek to show unity ahead of next month's European elections. Macron's state visit is the first by a French president in almost 25 years. Along with the German president, Macron laid a wreath at the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, where the French president warned against a slackening of support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia.
To be on the side of peace today means giving strength to the law peace, but not capitulation. Peace is not an abandonment of principles. We have too often seen this confusion in collective debates. Peace means enabling a country to defend its borders and sovereignty. International law to build a lasting peace is the camp we have chosen, that of the law for the long term.
Let's cross over to Asia now, and Japan, China and South Korea have reaffirmed their aim of the denuclearization of North Korea and the stability of the Korean Peninsula as a whole after a trilateral summit in Seoul. Leaders from the three countries held a rare meeting in an attempt to revitalize negotiations for a three-way trade agreement. Those negotiations have really been stalled since 2019.
We will deepen economic and trade connectivity, strengthen cooperation in regional industrial and supply chains, and promote the resumption of negotiations on the China-Japan-South Korea Free Trade Agreement.
At the same time, North Korea is planning to launch a rocket carrying a satellite towards the Yellow Sea and east of Luzon Island between the 27th of May and the 4th of June. South Korea and Japan called on North Korea not to carry out that planned launch, though, with the rocket set to carry a space satellite.
We affirmed that the denuclearization of the North Korea and the stability of the Korean Peninsula are in the common interest of our three nations. I also requested that the two leaders continue to provide assistance for the immediate resolution of the abduction issue, and they expressed their understanding.
The so-called satellite launch that North Korea announced today is a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions, and the international community should respond firmly.
Now, the South Korean military also conducted attack drills deploying about 20 aircraft, saying it's fully prepared for North Korea's possible provocations. North Korea has also condemned comments from China, South Korea and Japan on denuclearization at that summit that we were just mentioning on Monday. Pyongyang calls the comments a grave provocation. DD India's Chris Gilbert sent this report from Tokyo.
Experts had held low expectations for these talks, with diplomatic sources saying ahead of them that getting any two of these countries to agree on bilateral issues is a challenge, but getting three of them as a group is much more difficult. But there have been outcomes from this first trilateral China.
Now, the US lawmaker Michael McCaul has actually visited Taiwan's capital, Taipei, on Monday, where he met the newly elected President Lai Ching-te. McCaul, in a statement, said that China's intimidating drills are a move showcasing their disinterest in peace. In response, China has asked the US to stay out of Taiwan affairs.
For just 3 days after your inauguration, Mr. President, the forces of China conducted intimidating military exercises, sending aircraft, 111 aircraft, and 46 warships, demonstrating that they are not interested in taking Taiwan by peaceful means, as agreed to in the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979.
Meanwhile, Taiwan's National Defense Ministry on Monday detected 21 Chinese military aircraft 11 naval vessels and 4 Coast Guard ships near its territory. 10 out of the 21 Chinese military aircraft also entered Taiwan's air defense identification zone. In response, Taiwan deployed naval vessels and also coastal missiles. And that's all from me here in Rome. It's back to you, Tanvi, in the studio in New Delhi.
Thank you, Giles. Giles Gibson joining us all from Rome. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. Cyclone Remal leaves a trail of destruction in eastern India's West Bengal and coastal Bangladesh. And the United Arab Emirates sets the Guinness World Record for the largest solar power light bulb display in Dubai.
As India decides in the world's largest election,
we help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
We are in Assam. This is the tea city of India.
From down south, Tamil Nadu.
Discover the colors of democracy.
Gateway to northeast of India.
Coastal state of Kerala. Watch Poll Pulse on DD India.
You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Severe cyclonic storm Remal, which made landfall between the coasts of India and Bangladesh on Sunday, has weakened into a cyclonic storm. It is predicted to weaken further into a deep depression through the day. Several districts of Assam and the northeast of India are on high alert. Kolkata, the capital of eastern Indian state of West Bengal, is witnessing heavy rain and gusty winds after the cyclone made landfall. More than 110,000 people from coastal regions, including the Sundarbans and Sagar Island, have been evacuated. India's national and state disaster response forces are clearing the roads after trees were uprooted. In Bangladesh, at least 10 people died and over 30,000 homes destroyed after Cyclone Remal smashed into low-lying areas of Bangladesh on Sunday night. Severe Cyclone Remal made landfall between Khepupara and West Bengal's Sagar Island on Sunday night. The storm weakened after it crossed onto the land, eventually becoming a depression. The violent storm disrupted power supply to southern districts of Bangladesh, leaving over 20 million people without power and disrupting mobile networks and internet services. Further eastwards in Papua New Guinea, rescue efforts are continuing as the government confirmed that over 2,000 people are buried under a massive landslide that swept over a remote village in the country. Residents are still trying to reach out to survivors as heavy equipment are unable to reach the remote areas for rescue efforts. The International Organization for Migration's chief of mission in Papua New Guinea said treacherous terrain and the difficulty of getting aid to the affected sites raises the possibility of only a few survivors being found. Meanwhile, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that he is deeply saddened by the loss of lives in Papua New Guinea.
It's very difficult to recover the bodies from underneath the heavy debris. And the land is still sliding, rocks are continuing to fall, and furthermore, to make things worse, there is water flowing underneath the debris and the floor, soil, ground on which the debris sits. So we fear that this mud can turn the ground into a slide.
Now, in an interview given to a prominent news agency, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi opened up for the first time on Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and Aam Aadmi Party leader Arvind Kejriwal receiving endorsements from Pakistan.
चुनाव भारत का है और भारत का लोकतंत्र बहुत ही मैच्योर्ड है, तंदुरुस्त परंपराएं हैं, और भारत के मतदाता भी बाहर की किसी भी हरकतों से प्रभावित होने वाले मतदाता नहीं है। मैं नहीं जानता हूं कि कुछ ही लोग हैं जिनको हमारे साथ दुश्मनी रखने वाले लोग क्यों पसंद करते हैं, कुछ ही लोग हैं जिनके समर्थन में आवाज़ वहाँ से क्यों उठती है। अब ये बहुत बड़ी जांच पड़ताल का या गंभीर विषय है और मुझे नहीं लगता है कि मुझे जिस पद पर मैं बैठा हूँ वहाँ से ऐसे विषयों पर कोई कमेंट करनी चाहिए।
And next, more on the last leg of the world's largest elections underway in India. So 57 constituencies across 8 states and union territories will go to polls on 1st of June. In the 7th and last phase of India's parliamentary election, 904 candidates will be in the fray. Counting of votes for all the phases will be held on 4th of June. So campaigning has intensified for the final phase of polling on 1st of June. Political leaders are holding rallies across the country. BJP leader and Home Minister Amit Shah is on a campaign trail in Kushinagar, Uttar Pradesh, and is addressing rallies in Balia and Gosaipur in Uttar Pradesh. BJP President JP Nadda is campaigning in Varanasi for the BJP, where he held a convention and met locals, urging them to vote in his party's favour. For its part, the opposition is also making a last-ditch effort to woo voters. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi are on the campaign trail in Odisha's Baleshwar. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi also held rallies in Bihar. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra addressed multiple public meetings in Himachal Pradesh today. And from India's elections, now let's talk about South Africa's elections. South Africa's election on May 29th will be its most closely contested in 3 decades of multiracial democracy. The country of 62 million people has been grappling with power cuts, joblessness and corruption. It threatens to end the dominance of the African National Congress 30 years after Nelson Mandela led it into power. DD India's Isaac Lukando reports from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania.
On Wednesday, over 27 million South Africans will vote in a crucial election. Polls suggest the ruling ANC might get as low as 40% of the vote, down from 57.5% in 2019. Analysts predict this could force the ANC into a coalition, risking a leadership challenge for President Cyril Ramaphosa. Yet, a recent Afrobarometer survey found a third of voters are undecided, making this election highly unpredictable. 70 political parties are participating, with the ANC, Democratic Alliance and Economic Freedom Fighters leading. Despite uncertainty, President Ramaphosa remains optimistic, confident his party will win nationally and provincially. Ramaphosa has outlined his vision for the next 5 years, focusing on job creation, democracy and Africa's development. However, unemployment and poverty persist, with a 32% unemployment rate, the world's highest, and over half the population living in poverty. Isaac Lukando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. A Thai opposition lawmaker, Chonticha Jangru, was sentenced to 2 years in prison for insulting the monarchy. Chonticha has been granted bail for now. Courts in Thailand also handed jail terms to an activist musician who set fire to a portrait of the king. Thailand's lèse-majesté law shields the powerful monarchy from criticism and carries a penalty of up to 15 years in jail for offence. With elections looming closer, natives of South Africa's Durban are facing a major water crisis. The dry taps and poor sanitation services have added to the financial and social problems of the residents, who pin it on corruption and mismanagement. Russia will build a small nuclear power plant in Uzbekistan. the first such project in the country. Russia's President Vladimir Putin is in Tashkent on a 2-day state visit and held bilateral talks with Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. Back to Asia. 32-year-old mountaineer from Nepal, Purnima Strait, has made history as the first woman in the world to climb Mount Everest 3 times in the same season, all in just 13 days. Purnima's exceptional triple ascent beats the previous record of any woman summiteer to climb the Everest thrice in a single season. She has climbed Everest 4 times with the prior summit in 2018. The world record set by her empowers other female climbers and inspires women all over the world to achieve their dreams. And for some more inspiration, now on sustainability. The United Arab Emirates set the Guinness World Record for the largest solar power light bulb display in Dubai, aiming to create awareness about the importance of renewable energy. Shaped like the UAE's national golf tree and made from more than 3,000 lanterns, the display created a fantastic view. The lanterns will later be distributed to households in the villages of the Philippines that don't have access to electricity yet. So that's it in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can download our DD India mobile app. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.